Welcome to the next episode of the Real Stories Leadership Series for the Canadian real estate industry. I'm your host, Micheline Bentley from Matrix360, and we're excited to collaborate with Informa Canada. We're delivering a platform for leaders to share their experiences. The intent of our dialogue series is to engage with business leaders as they share their insights and wisdom. Before we commence, just a little bit about Matrix360. We're an advisory platform that bridges the human connection to business innovation, and it is with great privilege and responsibility that we partner and advocate for people in our industry. Today we are here at the Canadian Apartment Investment Conference, the CAIC, and we're honored to be joined by Tyler Seaman, Head of Hotels and Multi-Residential North America at Oxford Properties Group. Welcome, Tyler.
Thank you, Micheline.
Thank you for joining us today. To kick off the conversation, tell us a little bit about a moment you've experienced in your career that has made what you would describe as a positive impact on you.
Sure. I think it's tough to pick one moment in a career when you're feeling as old as I am right now. But one specific moment would have been an acquisition that we have done and that we had completed in Montreal in the course of my career at Oxford, called La Cité. And La Cité at the time was a $232 million acquisition. So it was a large acquisition, certainly by any stretch in my career, but also one of the largest multi-residential acquisitions done in Canada. So that was a positive experience for me in terms of my career progression, but also certainly for Oxford and the evolution of its apartment platform.
Mm-hmm. If you could go back to your 20-year-old self and mentor your 20-year-old self, what would be some critical pieces of advice that you would give?
Sure.
Knowing what you know now.
Knowing what I know now. Well, I think as a 20-year-old, you're either fresh out of school or fresh out of your first job or just into your first job. And quite often, there's an emphasis on formality, about being buttoned down, about never letting your guard down, because you're just new in different situations. I think looking back, if I could talk to my 20-year-old self, I would say, have the confidence to show people who you are and to show a bit of vulnerability, because when you're 20, you have lots, and people understand that anyways. They're certainly the people that you want to use as mentors and align your career with. So that would be certainly one of the fundamental things I'd say.
Human side.
The human side. Yeah.
What do you think, we're going to shift gears here a little bit, what do you think is the largest misconception about your career? And I'll leave that open because it could go in any direction, about what you do or who you are, or a combination of things.
Largest misconception. Well, it's interesting. I'll take that question and say, now with social media and LinkedIn, you have most of us professionally have a good opportunity to kind of define or at least correct misimpressions of our careers. But I would say one of the impressions I would like to correct or certainly clarify would be that I've been more acquisitions focused than I have been focused on the management of our team and people. And I've certainly come to learn through the years that it's the people on the front lines that make us the money. And you buy an asset once, and then the good people that are working against that asset, figuring out how to reduce expenses, make money, do things in better ways, are the people that you really need to value and honor and cherish. And acquisitions come and go.
There's so many layers to that. So reflecting on your career, are there any factors you've noticed that have affected employees in the workplace as you see it today, given that last piece of information that you alluded to?
I think I think as I talk to young people, whether they're working for me or they're onboarding at Oxford, because we spend a lot of time doing that, one of the things I say is you really got to dig in to the task you're given, whether you like it, love it, or not liking it so much, and to try and get some early wins. So as you're trying to make a mark, make an impression, find your feet, as you're moving your career along, you really got to have some early wins, find ways to put your hand up, and do something meaningful and beneficial for the company, such that other people say, wow, I don't define that person necessarily in terms of their job title or their current station on the org chart. They're just a really good, capable person who can think outside the box and solve problems.
Do you think that that's changed more now, and people are or are not doing that, just to clarify?
Yeah, I think the good people are.
Okay.
And there's lots of room for people that are willing to do that, because maybe it's a cliche and everybody's heard it. People are our most valuable resource, but they certainly are. And as we look at projecting our platform more globally and through North America and Europe and Asia, right up at the top of the list of challenges, and we look at opportunities and challenges, are people and how we're going to resource all these regions.
So I noticed that in 2012 you participated in a Columbia University Career Development Program with Oxford. Perhaps this will kind of tie into some of your thoughts on this next question in context of guidance, as you were referring to. So if there was someone that you have professionally looked to for guidance or leadership or advice maybe that has helped you progress throughout your career, who would that be? And second part is, what is the best piece of advice that you've received from them? So the first part is more like, who's the person that you see as someone who did guide you? And the second part is the advice they gave you.
For sure. So early in my career, in my first job, right out of school, with effectively an absence of any skill to speak of other than the education I brought with me, there was a mentor I had at a brokerage firm named Carl Innanen, who literally taught me how to answer the phone, how to conduct myself in meetings, taught me a lot about business discourse and things to look for in others. And so I thanked him recently for that. So that's great. And that goes back to when I was 22 or 23 years old, starting my career. And then more recently, there's a senior vice president at Oxford named Andrew McCallan, who is himself coming around to his retirement likely in the next little while. And he's taught me a ton about business, but he's also very much taught me a lot about life and reflecting on his life and his experiences, both corporately and with his family, and most importantly, I think, what to value. And that's the best advice you can get.
Yeah. Life advice and how it applies. Here's some interesting facts I'd like to share with you. So according to the latest stats in Canada Census Report, 82% of the Canadian population live in large and medium-sized centres and cities across the country. One of the highest concentrations among the G7 nations. Also, according to 2016, Matrix did a survey for Canadian Real Estate Diversity Workplace Survey. In Ontario, over 52% of the population in urban centres are female, while less than 34% of women are in leadership positions. In Ontario, between 35 and 54% of the working population in urban centres identify as visible minorities. So that could be visible race, ethnic groups, and women. Less than 25% of them are in leadership positions. So considering this information, could you share with us what you and the industry are doing to acknowledge some of these factors within the Canadian workforce as a leader and also a board member?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I happen to work for a very progressive organization. OMERS is our parent company, but Oxford and OMERS is, based on my journey through corporate Canada, one of the most progressive organizations. So the tone is set at the top, and so with whether it's a diversity and inclusion initiative that we have, from just how people conduct themselves every day, to having all people in all the different groups that you talked about as you stratified that with the statistics, feel welcome and honored in our organization. It's so ingrained now at OMERS and Oxford that that it's not like, oh, I have to remember to, you know what I mean, to think or act in this way.
That's the culture.
It is absolutely part of the culture, and culture is central to OMERS and Oxford. So I'm lucky in that that's where I've aligned my career, and I know there's still a ton of work to do, both at Oxford and at other organizations.
So to reiterate, the Real Estate Leadership Series is really positioned to showcase the insight and wisdom for the real estate leaders. And in conclusion, what footprint would you like to leave as your legacy in the business community?
Boy, so these are all great big questions, Micheline, that are tough to sum up in 2 or 3 sentences off the cuff here. But you know, I hope I leave a legacy, and I'll talk about it in a multifamily context. I'm old enough to remember when multifamily residential was just coming into acceptance as an institutional asset class. Traditionally in Canada, it was office or retail, and Oxford itself was a dominant office and retail company. Through my career now, almost 15 or 20 years, we have really made a mark for multi-residential as an accepted institutional quality asset class. In our case, because we have 400,000 plan members in our pension fund, multi-residential is great for paying pensions. It's a very steady stream of income, and it just has phenomenal characteristics, very low risk. So really good characteristics that recommend it to investment by pension funds and other institutions, pension funds like OMERS. So if I have a legacy, I hope that's part of the legacy, that the kind of institutionalization and professionalize the professional nature of multifamily residential.
Changing the tone on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to conclude our conversation today, this is not going to be easy, but maybe it will be. What is one word that would use to capture the essence of who you see yourself as a leader? Could be easy because it's one word.
could be easy because it's one word. Yeah. Let's go caring.
Caring. Okay.
Let's go caring, and that comes from my dad, who's now passed away, but he was a particularly hard-driving leader in the business that he ran, and we always said to him, Dad, how do your employees put up with you? And he said, Tyler, I know they put up with me because they know I care. Yeah. So that's how I'd like to be remembered.
Well, I'm sure that's an indication of how Oxford feels about you, because you're celebrating your 12 years today.
Oh, thank you, Micheline. I am indeed, September 5th.
Thank you so much for being here with us and for such an engaging conversation. On behalf of Matrix360 and Informa, we appreciate you taking the time to share your perspective and experiences with us today. And if you'd like to learn more about Matrix360 or Informa Canada, please take a look on our website. Thank you so much.